border. Number 20. Poland and Russia. The Russian exclave known as Kaliningrad is located just north of Poland. The land has acted as a valuable port city for Russia due to its location on the Baltic Sea. The land here was primarily dominated by Germans for a long period in history, but in modern times, there are primarily ethnic Russians living here. The border is quite tense due to disagreements between NATO and Russia. There's only 4 entrances to Poland from Kaliningrad, and each one is heavily guarded, especially in comparison to EU countries. Number 19. Brazil and Argentina. On one side of the waterfall, you have Portuguese, and on the other side, you have Spanish. The long border between Brazil and Argentina stretches 785 miles. The scenic Iguazu Falls sits right between the two South American countries and is only 3 miles away from the border of Paraguay. The national park is located within a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it preserves a large diversity of flora and fauna. Number 18. The Zambezi River Gorge. This gorge, located on the Zambezi River you see in this photo, separates Zimbabwe and Zambia. The left side is Zimbabwe and the right side is Zambia. It's the 4th longest river in Africa and can be quite wide in some areas. This serves as quite the boundary between the two nations and would certainly be difficult to cross. Number 17. Norway and Sweden. Here in this photo, we see a group of people on snowmobiles riding directly between the two northern European countries of Norway and Sweden. Both countries are known for their winter sports, and you can clearly tell both sides have plenty of snow, so they won't have to fight over it. Number 16. Haiti and Dominican Republic. The differences in this photo are quite drastic, and the grass is literally greener on the other side. You can see the lush wildlife of the Dominican Republic on the right side, and the complete deforestation of Haiti on the left. The two nations share the same tropical island in the Caribbean known as Hispaniola. The reason for the radical difference is due to the huge difference in environmental protection laws between the two countries. Number 15. USA and Canada. Here's one of the many interesting borders between USA and Canada. The long boundary stretches 3,987 miles, and that's not even with Alaska. In many places, the boundaries between the US and Canada are quite artificial. The only way for the two countries to know what their territories are is to draw it up on the land, literally. Number 14. Egypt and Israel. The border between Israel and Egypt is one of the few man-made boundaries visible from space. One of the reasons the land is a different color in Egypt is likely due to a higher level of grazing by animal herders on the Egyptian side of the border. Also, Israel is much more densely populated than Egypt, and much of the land they try to build things on. Agriculture in Israel normally appears to be in large angular patterns. Despite the borders being quite controversial and well fought for, we can still see the difference between the nations. Number 13. Poland and Ukraine. These two Eastern European countries are great friends and share a border of 332 miles. Their borders are quite historical too, and many researchers have been very curious about the linguistics, the history, and political differences between the two countries. It's considered to be the most often crossed border in the EU, which is primarily generated by Ukrainians for trade and tourism. There's roughly 8 million people that live along this small stretch of land we call a border. What they do have in common, however, are the fish between the two. Despite all the differences, the two countries are great friends. Number 12. Spain and Portugal. Imagine hearing Spanish before you get on a zip line, and then once it's over, you're hearing Portuguese. Some people might not really notice the difference, but this zip line into another country seems like quite the cultural experience. The border, if it even really exists, is about 1,192 miles that separates the two European Union countries. Number 11. Germany and the Czech Republic. One of the forests that separates the two countries apparently had a huge infestation of bark beetles, which would destroy trees and make them look like the ones on the Czech side. Germany managed the situation much more effectively, and you can tell the difference in the photos. Number 10. India and Pakistan. These two nations are well known for having some border disputes between them, but there's also been some pretty cool photos of their international borders as well. Here in this photo, you see a river separating the two countries that flows through the disputed territory of Kashmir. The locals mainly refer to it as the line of control, which is not a well-respected border, but considered under control of one of the two nations due to occupation. These two gates close each other off, and with the right being on India and the left one being on Pakistan, you can feel the tension seeming to rise. There are certainly much more militarized zones along this border, and we see here the amount of barbed wire and armed guards. Number 9. Chile and Argentina. The countries of Chile and Argentina share a long border that stretches north and south, and it's the 3rd longest border in the world, and longest in South America. Stretching 3,200 miles, it's naturally separated in most places due to the high elevation of the Andes Mountains. Here in this photo, we see the Christian statue between the two, with Chile on the right and Argentina on the left. The final boundary was established in 1984 and signed at the Vatican. Number 8. Afghanistan and Pakistan. The hunt for Osama bin Laden brought many Americans to this rugged terrain between the two countries. Here in this photo, we see the Torkham Gate, which divides Afghanistan and Pakistan and is a huge border crossing location between the two countries. The location has been used often in history by caravans and armies attempting to reach big trading destinations like India or Istanbul. The border gate was constructed by Pakistan to have more control over the area, but the controversial decision led to some skirmishes to secure the area. Number 7. Spain and Morocco. The Spanish port city of Melilla on the continent of Africa shares a large border with Morocco. Constructed by Spain in order to prevent illegal immigration and smuggling, they built this border fence. An estimated 700 have tried to make it across, and 6 died due to clashes with Moroccan security forces. Spain spent 33 million euros worth of renovations in 2005 and added more razor wire. Some steps were made to slow down the intruders more peacefully, but it still remains an imposing international border. Number 6. Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina. A little more of a peaceful boundary, this one is located where all 3 of these countries meet. The Parana River flows north and south in this photo, and the Guazú River ends when it meets Paraguay. The rivers act as natural boundaries and play important roles in agriculture. Number 5. Belgium and the Netherlands. Don't you wish we could all have borders like this? These two friendly EU countries really don't have any fences, rivers, or mountains, and you might not even really know you're walking into a different country. These two countries both speak the same language and use the same currency. This border is found in the town of Barle-Nassau and has a population of 6,600 people, and the border here gets a little bit complicated as you can see from this photo. There's a few random pieces of Belgium inside this city due to a number of complex treaties, land swaps, land sales, and other complex deals, especially during medieval times. Today it mainly serves as a tourist attraction and is kind of a border nightmare here. Number 4. Spain and England. You might not have known these two countries actually share a border. If you head south of Spain, not far from Morocco, you'll notice something seems a little bit different about it. Possibly like some monkeys. Get ready to swap out your euros for pounds and learn some English, because once you're in Gibraltar, you're in the UK. This land was signed over to England under the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 and was an extremely important naval base for the British ever since. This strategic port is located on the Strait of Gibraltar, which is the only way to enter from the west into the Mediterranean Sea. When the UK decided to leave the EU, more secure boundaries were built, and it led to more Spaniards wanting to reclaim the land. However, a vote was taken and the citizens decided to remain British. Number 3. India and Bangladesh. These two countries share quite a complicated border in Southeast Asia, with India nearly surrounding the entire country. If you look closely at it, it almost appears as a young child scribbled on the map and came up with these borders. India is a large, fast-growing country, and Bangladesh is one of the poorest per capita. The way the border is drawn out, it features random pieces of land belonging to India surrounded by Bangladesh, and it makes it rather difficult to defend. In recent years, it's become one of the most dangerous borders in the world. A controversial shoot-on-sight policy was enforced, and this 10-foot barbed wire fence was constructed that stretches 2,116 miles. Number 2. North and South Korea. Also known as the Korean Demilitarized Zone, the Korean Peninsula is cut in half along the 38th parallel. The 2.5-mile wide border that separates the two nations is one of the more intense international borders in the world. You can almost feel the tension about to burst at any moment. Both sides of the demilitarized zones are heavily militarized. Despite attempts to keep the two countries from engaging in all-out war, some skirmishes have broken out, and tunnels have been built all the way from North Korea. This flag here sits on top of the North Korean side and is 524 feet tall and can be seen from the South Korean side. Number 1. The US-Mexico border. Possibly the most controversial border in the world right now is the Mexican-American border, which can appear quite shocking when it comes to urban development like we see in this photo. On the right side, you see the city of Tijuana that seems quite densely populated, even to the very edge of the border. The building on the US side is built to treat sewage from the Tijuana side, so it's not exactly an area where Americans want to live. Many other parts of the US border aren't as well secured, and in 2010, the fence was actually